both claps from one person.
Little... Okay.
Now you'll have that. Hey, Warriors, having fun today.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm joined today by a very special guest. I have the one, the only, Warrior. Thank you so much for coming on, Warrior.
What's happening, Crazy? How you doing?
Good, good. So recently, right before the raid came out, I released a video talking about how to kind of prioritize both your tunes that you're focusing on and all of the game modes. And in the video, I talk about how spending resources would kind of be like an entire video on its own. And one of my followers requested making the video, and they thought that Warrior would be a great person to have on because you do a lot of work, Warrior, about talking how people should spend their crystals.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I do crystal management. It's really important to me because you only get so much. It's a finite resource for most people. About 70% of people don't spend anything in the game at all. So when I say anything, I mean like less than $20 a year. And then, of course, the Worth It series that I do, and that's to try and help people determine whether what they're spending their money on is actually going to be worth the actual salt in the item that they're trying to purchase.
Absolutely. Okay, so what we're going to do, I have this is the dev account. This is all, I do not have 24 million crystals on
That's
my
nice. Apparently you're one of the
wish.
like 3% that have, unlimited crystals. That's nice.
But so what we're going to do is we'll go through the resources, we'll kind of step through the stores and give our opinions on how you should spend them, and if that changes based on what level you're on and everything like that. So let's start with crystals, since that's the most important resource. What do you advise for crystals, and does that change based on what level people are?
Absolutely. So when you first start before you're level 85, and by the way, the level 85 journey is going to be different for everyone, but it should be somewhere between 4 to 6 months. I think there are people that are spending money that'll get there in a couple of months, but there's only so many refreshes you can even buy a day. So it does take time. And that's what we would call early game. Early game is going from 0 to 85, and it takes the average person, even free to play, 4 to 6 months. And then once you hit that 85, you're then into mid game. And once you're in mid game, you're there for a while, probably over a year. And then you would be, classified as in game. In game is where you're in a guild that can basically do most of the raids, if not all the raids. And you've got a number of characters that are 7-star, gear 11, unless you're free to play, and then they're probably gear 9. And you've got a number of them, and you're able to make up multiple team compositions for multiple facets of the game. That would be end game. So those 3 different stages, you're going to handle your crystals differently. The first stage is getting yourself to level 85, and the only thing that matters is energy refreshes. And so every single crystal you have should be going towards exclusively energy refreshes. The energy refreshes are going to allow for you to gain experience points, because that's the only way to gain experience points is really through these energy refreshes, or if they give away some experience points through some of the events. But overall, this is basically it. So you want to get up as fast as you can possibly get to level 85, because your level will dictate how high your character's levels can be. So that's important. And then once you hit mid game, it depends, of course, if you're free to play or spending, but if you're free to play, and we're going to go off of that since that's the greater swath of individuals, you're going to start to kind of balance out saving crystals and doing energy refreshes. So when you get to that mid game, you're going to continue to do energy refreshes because you still need to farm for gear. That never goes away, sadly, but there is lower in gear and then there's higher in gear. And by mid game, you're starting to hit a brick wall and you're going to start hitting specific things that are nearly impossible to get quickly. And you're going to take, months to farm for maybe, let's say a stun gun, a Mark 5 stun gun. That could take you a month or two as free to play. So because of that, you want to save some of your crystals for purchasing items out of the store that are going to help expedite that situation of having, not the stuff that you need. So some of it will go to energy refreshes. I recommend the 350s if you're free to play. If you're not free to play, I only recommend going past maybe to the 100s and then stopping there. Unless you're a whale or a dolphin, there's really no reason to go beyond that. And then the rest of them over the balance of the 50, 50, and 50 that you'll want to save the rest for being able to purchase out of the store, because the store is going to have pieces that you can't get any other way except for through raids and or an exorbitantly long time of farming, and this will speed up your farming process. Now, for free to play, my favorite crystal purchases, if you go into the shipments, and let's go in there and I'll show you kind of my like go-to favorites. You shouldn't buy characters if you're free to play. Shouldn't buy gear 12 pieces if you're free to play, if you're early to mid game. But if you come down, you'll notice, keep going, see if you can find like 20 of something. Well, those are all like fully crafted pieces. There, that's fully crafted.
Reminder that this is the alt I don't have.
Yeah, why don't you
100,000 Carvanti.
Yeah, why don't you refresh and see if we can get, because these are all like.
Oh, there's these.
Oh, there.
I love these.
Yeah, so the Mark 10 Tech Hollow Lens Salvage. So there's 20 for 500. So again, it's a realistic goal to save up 300 or 500 crystals. I think anyone knows they can do that, especially once they're mid-game. They realize if they put their mind to it, they can save that kind of crystals pretty quickly. And there's another one above there, the Mark 10 Neurosav Electro Binoculars. To the left, there's a Mark 6 Thermal Detonator. Above it, there's 20 stun cuffs, and they're only 560. And so what I'm saying is you're going to farm those things, right? We all know that, but you get stuck farming in a rut, right? And you're farming those stun cuffs, and you just want to finish this guy off and get that stun cuff and move on to another character or another piece of gear. Because if you're laser focused, you're going to keep going, right? So then this is going to just help you kind of, instantly, boom, you got like 5 days of farming done by spending 500 crystals. And so it's going to be a balance between doing energy refreshes and spending some crystals, but wisely in the store. And then when you get to end game, you've been level 85 for a while, probably over a year. You're in a really decent guild. You're probably doing the heroic AAT by now, or you're getting close. You might even have a guild that is starting to kind of tackle the Sith raid. With that situation, you're going to be saving all your crystals pretty much exclusively. Hopefully by this time your characters are developed in game, they're gear level 9 and above, and the things that you can't farm for is what you're basically primarily needing. And you're going to want almost all of your crystals at this point now to be going to get the gear out of the store, so you can really maximize that, because when you get really high, gear 10, gear 11, most of the items that you're going to farm for most characters takes far too long to acquire, but you can just purchase it right out of the store. And for most of these pieces, not all, but most of these pieces, it's actually a better value to just spend the crystals saved up than to use the crystals on energy refreshes. Now, in theory, there's some of them in there that are actually better to farm. And there's actually a website that tells you, I can't remember the name, but it'll actually tell you which one you should farm for and which one you shouldn't. But I want to emphasize that even if there's a piece that is slightly better by farming for it versus getting it in the store, let's say it saves you 200 crystals, it doesn't save you time by farming, whereas buying it out of the store, it saves you time. It's an instantaneous thing. So keep that in mind. Time savings is really what you're looking for in this game. So those are the 3 stages with crystal resource management that I kind of suggest to individuals, from early to mid game to end game, and kind of how to evolve their crystal spending.
Very cool. Very, very, very nice. I pretty much agree with everything you say. At the beginning, it's a lot of energy refreshes. But at the end, it's always gear. I didn't have any crystals until I was kind of getting towards level 85. And I was like, what do I spend these on? And everyone's like, gear, 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 gear. That's the only thing you spend them on. So, okay. So going into energy, like normal energy and Cantina energy, you talked a little bit about normal energy, and I think it's kind of this balancing act of getting the shards that you really need and the gear, like the low gear that you always need. What about Cantina? And I think this is a really hard crunch for people, because there's a lot of very clutch tunes in the Cantina, and there's also mods. So what I think for Cantina energy is the essential tunes you just have to get first, and you can kind of, what I think works for a lot of people is set aside like a couple days a week, like maybe the weekend, and you just do mods those 2 days. Because it takes a while to grind mods, but you can't put off these key characters because then you get stuck with Rey and Luke coming out and you're not ready. So I think like those are priority one. You need to do them right away, get them done so you can unlock these essential tunes. You know, like the Phoenix for Thrawn, you just need to get those done. But you can't completely forsake mods, so maybe just assign a couple days a week, and those are your days for mods, or like 1 week a month. You just do mods, and then you go back to farming the characters. What do you think for Cantina energy?
Yeah, so I actually completely agree. I think that, essential characters are just that. They're essential, they're vital, you got to get them. And so you're going to have to spend some energy. They give you some Cantina energy, but it's super slow refilling, and it's really hard. This is probably the unspoken individually hardest part of the game, actually, in its entirety. You can pick any other part of the game, and this is actually the hardest part for most players, and that's because this is the deal. You have dailies that you have to do, and so you've got to spend some energy doing light side battles, dark side battles, and you can, if you're really, 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 really smart, use your your natural energy to get your dark side, light side, hard battle daily requirement done. But it takes super focus to make sure that you're spending it appropriately. And then you have to give up a certain amount of time where you're farming for characters. And then, like you said, mods. Once you hit mods, you have to start really developing those teams and unlocking those mod sets so you can get 5 mods. Because, I mean, at some point, 6 and 7 mods will come down the road, and level 90s coming, potentially. So with that said, you definitely need to at least get the 5 mods. Like you said, I often recommend that somebody pick like a weekend, or if they're not getting good enough mods, to do a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 3 days. But the characters are going to be clutch that you get out of there. So you should be farming 4 or 5 days a week out of the Cantina when you're looking for those characters. As far as energy spent and refreshes and crystals, I actually recommend that you hyper focus, especially if you're free to play, on one thing, not 2 things. And so a lot of people, they get in this, grind of always gearing up characters every day, which you should, right? But if you're free to play, you don't really have that luxury, sadly. You have to choose. Am I gearing a character, or am I trying to go for shards? Like, that is actually a legitimate decision they have to make, which I have had the luxury of not having to make, but I understand it because everybody I know basically in real life that plays is free to play, and they're like, dude, you don't understand it. I'm like, no, I get it. Like, that sucks. You have to decide. Are you going to get some gear? I know.
You don't understand.
But I do, because I watch them play and I'm like, oh man, you're right. You can't go for gear today. You actually can only spend your crystals on 2 refreshes in Cantina and go for that character. And then he gets no drops in that Cantina and he wants to punch his fist through a wall. And like, I watch that and I'm like, okay, I appreciate that. I get it. It's kind of what drives me to be a spender. I think that that's what EA Capital Games wants. But for anybody who's willing to just, tranquilo, enjoy the ride and just go through it, I think that they'll understand that there's an appreciation to it, that you earn it by doing that. But you don't do gear and characters at the same time. You just can't. So you've got to hyper focus. I always tell people, stay on target, stay on target. This is what I mean. So if you're going for a Cantina character, you're not going to be using any crystals on refreshes for gear. You're going to use your daily energy to do the gear and the dark and light side battles. You'll actually use all your crystals for Cantina nodes specifically just to get the star level up of a character and focus on that and that alone. And that means you're going to have to sacrifice gearing characters up, which is really rough to know that you have to give up sacrifices. But, starring a character and then transitioning to gearing that character. And for most people, if they're free to play, the low end gear, because they're not doing as many characters, they're gearing, 3 to 5 characters at a time versus, someone that might be gearing up 8 to 15 characters at a time who's a spender. They have a lot more in reserves of some of the, lower end gear. So once you get a character to 7 stars for an event, you should be able to get them to gear level 6, like instantly, especially if you've been playing for any real given period of time, such as, a year and a half, 2 years, something like that. And so that lower end gear really shouldn't be a factor. And then you get into that kind of mid-level gear, which is where you start to grind it out. And that's where, like I said, you're going to have to start focusing on then transitioning those crystals from the Cantina energy to getting them to 7 stars to using it to purchase some of those pieces of gear to kind of speed up that mid-level farming. So it's all a strategy.
Yeah. Cantina's really rough because, like you said, it takes forever. And especially something like the veterans where there's 16 energy nodes, it takes a really long time. But that's why the really important ones like that you need, the tunes that you need for Thrawn, that you need for Luke, that you need for Rey, they're so important. You got to get it done and out of the way. Just buckle down, grind it out, and then it's done.
And I have people that'll say, hey, I bought, 2,800 in crystals. Should I do refreshes or should I do character purchases through the store? And, if you're at the 16 node and above, it is actually, in fact, going to almost always be a better deal to just use the crystals to purchase their shards straight out of the store, because there's no drop rate going to screw you. There's no, I did it 3 times and only got 2. And, it could be worse potentially, but almost never. It's almost always better to just use those crystals that you've purchased instead of on energy refreshes in a freak farm, to just purchase those character shards directly out of the store. And now pretty much I think every character basically in the game, other than like a couple elitist characters, pretty much every character is available in the store to purchase. That includes, Mother Talzin and the zombie and the spirits and First Order Executioner. They just added Holdo and Rose. I've been tempted to do Holdo as far as like getting her through the shipments, but I'm choosing not to. I'm going to free to play on that. I'm going to go ahead and wait until she's actually on a node somewhere. I'm sure it'll be a 16 Cantina node.
Gosh. There is this node. I'm just waiting to see what goes on it. Where is it? Let's see if I have it. This one. Something's going here. Something's going here. Something big. There's kind of like two sides you can take on stores. One is you can finish the entire store, 7-star everything, and I know a lot of people that really like doing this. The other thing is when you finish the key characters, then keep farming their shards so that you can use their shards to get gear in the shard shop. Now, as badly as I love the idea of 7-starring every single character, I can't bring myself to do it. Like, I can't bring myself to forsake shard shop currency so I can 7-star PAL. So I'm not the type of person that finishes off the store. I like fueling my shard shop to get the gear.
Yes. And my guess is you're not a whale or a kraken. So strategies vary wildly, right? And I think for this story, you're right. There's the thought process of both sides. One side is, just max everything out for max GP, because if you get the highest galactic power, you're more appealing to other guilds, and you've got all the character 7 stars. So even if you don't gear them, you can at least put their character in the necessary requirements when it comes to territory battles. So there's that, and I think that's important for anybody who's a dolphin and above to really, dolphin meaning you're going to spend, let's say $50 a month in the game or $20 a month in the game. You probably should finish off all these characters just so you have them. And then evolve to getting the gear. And I highly recommend fluffing your gear. Now, for me, just so you know, I buy Cassian's U-Wing. It's only one currency better than buying a Chopper or any of those other characters, but it is the best conversion rate because you get 5 for 400, and so when you convert it into energy, you actually get more, because you get 19 for the ships, whereas you get 18 for the characters. Yep. As far as the currency. So you get actually 1 more for getting Cassian's U-Wing than you do for anything else. So it's the most efficient. He's 1 more, but it's still 1 more. So like, why wouldn't you? It adds up over a year. You know what I mean? So I get Cassian's U-Wing every day. That's what I spend my excess on because I have everything 7-starred. Earlier on, when I was early game, I bought all the characters because I'm OCD like that. And I was like, Pokemon, collect them all. So I collected them all, got them all 7 stars, but I was a whale back then. And so of course that made sense. And then my second thing I evolved into was getting the ship currency because I wanted to max all my ships out. And so then I didn't buy any of the characters in that store. I went to ship currency and exclusively bought the ship currency. And then after I had all my ships, that shipbuilding materials it's called, And then after I had all my ships maxed out, then I evolved over to Cassian's Ewing when it dropped and started just farming that to convert it for stuff. Now, if you're free to play, your strategy is actually better. Get the essential characters that are in your line. So like as you're playing and progressing, you're like, I need Phoenix. Okay, then obviously Chopper's on the top of your list. Or I need Bistan for his ship because he's a pilot, so or a crew member. And so I'm gonna go get Bistan. So you do that, right? But for the other characters, like, maybe you're not doing the old Daka because maybe you don't have a Mother Talzin or a zombie or anything like that. And so maybe you're not doing that. So at that point, it might be wise to purchase, Bistan after he's finished so you can continue to convert that for gear. And by the way, the gear shop, like to get the shard shop with all the gear, that is amazing. Had I had that early to mid game, I could have leveled so many characters up so much faster than I do now. It's like, what? Like when you take perspective and look at where the game was to where the game is now, it is so much more free to play friendly now. And for anyone that says otherwise, they either didn't play, had blinders on, or just don't appreciate all of what Capital Games has evolved the game into. Can it be improved? Of course. I think we're always going to say more gear, but it's way better, wouldn't you agree, than the way it was?
Yeah, I used to not even touch gear pieces that I need 50 of. It's like, nope, not even going there.
Yep, sorry, moving on.
Yeah. The other thing to note about shipbuilding materials, so yeah, when you're going through these stores, there's kind of staples that you need, and I suggest kind of picking one at a time, maybe two if you're like really in a crunch. But try and think of like things that you will need. Like you'll probably need Cassian's U-Wing for Chimera, so just keep that in mind when you're picking your priority on these. You need Cassian's U-Wing for Chimera, you need Chopper for Thrawn, and then every store has like a couple staples like Boba Fett.
Boba Fett should be the very first farm in this store. Absolutely, unequivocally. Yeah. He's the best leader for early to mid game.
Fives is good early game tune.
Yeah, and his ship is really vital either in your main lineup if you're early to mid game or free to play or mostly free to play, and then end game I still have fives in my backup. So, he's definitely important.
But another thing to keep in mind with these shipbuilding materials, I used to totally ignore them, but now I actually grab them quite often because of this mod shop. It's been revamped. So here we have a gold arrow. Is it speed? It's not speed.
Yeah, it has speed. Secondary though. This is a developer account. Roll it. See what you get.
Let's see. Of course I don't have.
Oh yeah, you don't have.
We have unlimited resources except for shipbuilding materials.
I'm just curious if it actually rolls. Because normally they don't. If I'm lucky, I buy a mod like that. I've spent almost 200 million credits or shipbuilding materials, and I've gotten just a handful that are over 10, which really sucks. All right. Come on, something cool. So 13. So, that's...
double digits.
Yeah, I mean, it's got offense.
Double digit speed is good.
Yeah, good critical chance, additional speed, defense, and some decent healthy protection. So, I mean, that's a mod right there, perfect for, Scion. Now, somebody may say, oh, not for my arena, I'd have to have the 30 arrow. That's true, possibly. But it just depends, I guess, on all your other mods and how you want to mod a character. So, yep.
And when you're picking mods from the shipments, I kind of only pick... because it does, like, I went a little crazy when the store got revamped.
Yeah, me too.
A little crazy. I blew all of my credits. So now I'm trying to only look at gold mods and only if they have a speed secondary. Is it going to show up or are they all going to stay blank?
Whoa.
Stores.
Did that just happen?
Stores. It hit refresh and now they're all gone.
They're missing.
There we go.
There we go.
The stores are gone.
They're like, hey, we're just going to take the stores from you. How you like that? How you like them apples?
Yeah. For this store, it's kind of the same. I finished off the key characters, and then I'm not doing Ugnaught or anything because credits are too important, and I'm always poor, and I'd rather get the credits and spend them on mods. So and I don't think I've ever bought Prestige. I don't think I ever have needed to buy Prestige.
Do you have all your main capital ships maxed out?
Mace probably isn't.
So I'm similar. I go for characters first, and then once I have all the characters I need, or for whales, all the characters, period. Then I went to Prestige because I wanted to have all my ships, including my capital ships, maxed for all purposes. And then I did Prestige until I had about 500 left over. And I was really happy I did that because when I hit 500 and moved to credits, Thrawn came out and I had enough to max him on day one. And I was like, yes, I was able to just totally, take advantage of that. And then I moved to credits. All I buy now, 100% of what I buy now are credits. If you're free to play or mostly free to play, you probably should get the distinct characters in your lineup of what you're trying to go for. And as soon as you're done with that, move straight to credits because the credit crunch is never going away.
Yep. And then for Galactic War, this is my biggest source and probably everyone's biggest source of shard sharp currency. And I showed it earlier when you were talking about it, that the ships convert to more than shards. So I just kind of always buy this top 3 row.
Yep, that's what I do. I buy the top 3 row if you don't have the other characters. Obviously, if you have the other characters, if you don't have them, then go get what you need down below. But if you have what you need, then buy the ships. And by the way, you should be buying all those ships. They're the easiest to farm ships in the game, and you need as many ships as possible for all of the events that are.
And you don't want to be spending fleet currency on those ships because they're available with something way cheaper. Speaking of,
there's a lot of ships in there you can get.
Speaking of fleet currency, I think one of the biggest mistakes people make right out of the gate when they unlock the store and they get ships is they immediately start buying Zetas. And I think that's a really bad idea because what you want to do when you first unlock this is get all those good ships, the ships that you can't get in the Galactic War shop, get those ships in this store first so that you can unlock the Zeta challenge so that you can get to the top of your fleet shard. Fleet shard's really nice. Once you get to the top, it kind of sucks to get your pilots up that high, but once you get there, you're kind of done. You can chill because fleet meta doesn't really change.
Sadly, it doesn't. So, everybody caught up to me.
It's kind of boring.
Yeah, a year ago.
It's nice because you get there and you just get to chill.
Yeah, it was great until about a year ago, and then they just nothing changed, and so everybody's caught up, and so yeah, it's a bit of a grind in ships to try and stay in the top, but because everybody has the same ships and maxed out. So for any excuses of I don't want to get ships up because it's going to take too long or whatever, trust me, they're giving you plenty of time to catch up to the meta. This is not ever changing like the other arena. This is the easiest arena of the two to really get to the top 20, and I agree with you. I actually know that most people get 1,600 of these because if you look at the rewards and stuff for Ship Arena, most people can acquire 1,600, and that's 4 purchases. So I suggest to people divide and conquer, use half for characters, use half for ships. Make sure that you're going for both the hard to get characters and the ships, because there are characters in here like, Rex is a good one. That's just really great to streamline. He's a great leader. He even right now in meta, he's a great leader.
Oh, sexy Rex.
Yeah. And then there's other ships like you said, like Boba Fett and Darth Maul's scimitar that you can't really get any other way, and you need to get those ships maxed out. And so, yes, divide and conquer. And then once you have all the characters and all the ships that you really need, that you feel like you need,
get Zetas.
Yeah, then go moving Zetas. I did every ship and every character to 7 stars first out of the store. It took me like anywhere from 3 to 4 months. I can't remember exactly how long, but I didn't have any Zetas at all except for the ship challenge for the first couple of months. And I remember everybody had like in my guild, everybody had like 3 or 4 Zeta characters, and I had none yet. I hadn't even purchased my first one, and I was like, this sucks, because the Zetas used to drop a little worse, and I was like, this sucks. But then now, fast forward, because I mastered all the characters and ships, now I just exclusively buy Zetas, and I now have the highest number of Zetas in the game. So
really?
Yeah, really. So even more than anybody in Team Instinct. Go look at it. If you guys, don't believe me, go check it out. Because I've been mad hoarding them and just going mad crazy doing nothing but Zetas. But it was because I maxed everything in the ship store first, and I didn't have to go back. And plus, I've also been finishing first in ships since day one, and that has really helped. And then, of course, I got that as soon as that ship challenge occurred, I was able to max that out and get Zetas from that. And of course, RNG plays a factor. So obviously, some people could say that's luck, and that is true. I've had decent drops with the Zeta challenge, but. Yeah, max Zetas.
Yeah,
I'm higher than anybody in Team Instinct even.
That's crazy.
By one, but still one.
Yeah, I think getting that Zeta challenge unlocked right away is the biggest thing. And don't pick Scimitar as one of your 5 because it has such a low drop rate. Definitely go for like the TIE fighters or something, even if the pilots are weak. You just need to get that challenge done really, really fast. All right, last store, the Guild Event store. This one, this is probably going to be a big do as I say, not as I do. I am paranoid that I don't have like insider info. We don't know. I'm not like hinting at anything, but I'm paranoid that we will need Wampa and Hermit Yoda for the next stage of Luke's hero's journey.
Possibility.
So I'm like mad hoarding this event store currency. I have like 50,000, and I'm trying to get to 100,000 so I can 7-star both of them, and then I will move to gear. That's probably a horrible idea because there's really, really good gear in here. Like really, really, really good gear. So it's probably a better idea to spend this currency on gear, or like pick one of these that you need to do for the raid or your arena and then go for them. Don't do what I'm doing and succumb to paranoia.
I think those two characters are, two of the top 10 best characters in the game right now. Someone would probably argue there's better characters that go in the top 10, but these two guys both can solo in a team by themselves. Hermit and his team, or Wampa and his team, the two of them can solo the heroic AAT, and the first two teams to ever do it included these two characters. That's amazing. But
you do need to have the gear to use them.
Yes.
And when
and I would say that these are in-game characters, and so again, just like anything, your decision making should change based on who you are. All my free-to-play friends use this for gear, just as one more resource towards gear, which we didn't have when we were early to mid-game either. And so he's not going to get, a couple of my friends aren't going to get Wampa right away, and they're not going to get Yoda right away. But they also don't have the teams to be able to utilize those characters to begin with, and if they are required in an event, they probably wouldn't be ready for that event anyway. They're more focused on the now and not the future, just like you said. So their goal is to basically really focus on getting that hard to get gear, not the easy stuff, but the hard to get stuff. No characters, no low end gear, just the highest end gear that's really, really hard to get. It really helps them. By the way, everybody wonders, should I do gear 12? You get enough gear 12 pieces kind of superficially through all the events now that you'll eventually get gear 12 pieces fully crafted through the salvage that you're given. It's slow, but it works, and some of them make a big impact, some of them not as much. So I don't worry about gear 12 pieces as much as everybody.
But I don't think I would ever recommend buying shards from this store. Ever.
No, this store is terrible on the bottom end.
So just don't even scroll to the bottom.
That's their way of trying to get you to waste your stuff.
Yeah. Just don't go past that bottom line. All right, any last advice?
No, I think that we've covered each store pretty well. This is awesome.
A lot of information.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. It was fun. I haven't done.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I haven't even done a video on my own account in like almost 2 weeks, except for one live stream. I know, right? That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I'm really behind. I'm really behind on content.
Yeah, I've got to start to box some time for my patrons and for my viewers to make sure they get some content. But I wanted to do this. I thought this was an excellent idea, and I wanted to jump in, and I appreciate you inviting me on.
I'm trying to find something really embarrassing. Here we go. A Gear 12 Mob Enforcer.
Sweet.
All right, well, thank you so much, Warrior. If you haven't checked out Warrior's channel by now, you're doing it wrong. And I will see you all on the next video.
See you guys.